Bonjour, mes amis. You're listening to the Sort Yourself Out podcast, where we discuss powerful, top-down, inside-out approaches to uplifting your life on all levels, helping you to free yourself of the hang-ups and blockages that hinder your well-being, so you can leap forward, feeling great in your own skin and giving your best to the world. Today, we're discussing how to be better than happy. I'll be sharing my top 10 tips for living a fulfilling life that goes way beyond and much deeper than plain old happiness. I'm your host, Janine Hunt, natural health therapist for over 30 years, hypnotherapist, lifelong student, and spiritual seeker. I like to seek out the most effective practices and techniques that provide the greatest bang for my buck and the fastest route to freedom from whatever is holding us back. I can't wait to share with you these powerful techniques so that you too can sort yourself out, know deeper meaning in your life, and best of all, a sense of inner peace. So let's get started. Well, hello there, and thanks so much for joining me today. Today, we're talking not just about happiness, but how to be better than happy. Because happiness is not all it's cracked up to be. It's often related to a moment in time, something pleasurable you're doing, a specific event or circumstance, like a dinner with the girls, or the fulfillment of a material desire, like getting those new boots you've been lusting after. But that happiness is fleeting. The dinner ends, and pretty soon the glow of receiving the new boots will wear off. And you can bet that you'll be hankering after something else to feed that desire to be happy. And that kind of happiness can change in an instant. For example, have you ever been feeling really happy and then, say, someone is rude to you, or maybe you get a bill in the mail, and then, bam! Your happiness evaporates in a puff of smoke, and you sink into bummer mode. And there you are, thinking, wow, where did it go? I was happy a minute ago. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want you to have these pleasures and enjoyments in your life, because, hey, I appreciate new shoes too. What I am saying is that there is something much, much, much better than that. Something that nourishes your being at a deep and primal level. Something you can rely on that carries you through life's inevitable ups and downs. So today I'm sharing my top 10 tips on how you can be better than happy and achieve a lasting sense of well-being and fulfillment in your life. So let's dive right in with tip number 1. Have a personal philosophy that guides your life and gives it meaning and significance. For me, I try my best to follow the spiritual principles of the ageless wisdom. The ageless wisdom is the esoteric philosophy underlying all of the world's spiritual traditions before they became distorted by man's interpretation. Before I discovered the ageless wisdom, I was an ex-alcoholic and a very recent ex-atheist. I was floundering around, seeking answers to some burning questions I had about the nature of existence. When I quit drinking, I thought, wow, great, I have sorted myself out. But really, it was just the first step, as I had opened up a whole can of existential worms. I was definitely thinking, is this all there is? There's got to be more to life. And I began voraciously reading books on spirituality, looking for answers. And while they helped and I learned a lot, in terms of the bigger questions, because folks, I wanted to know it all, I was utterly dissatisfied with the information I was finding. It seemed to me that the authors of the books I was reading didn't really have the answers, at least not the answers to my questions. And then I found the ageless wisdom, and I felt like I could breathe again after ages of being starved of oxygen. I felt like I had found information I could trust, like I had found truth, and that's truth with a capital T. And it gave my life so much more meaning. It clued me in on the bigger picture of life, from the smallest elemental substance to the unfathomable vastness of the universe. It fed my soul. Not to say that I understood it all. In fact, when I got my first Alice Bailey book, I opened it excitedly, only to discover that I couldn't understand any of it. And I had to put the book away for a year or so, until one day I got an urge to get it out and try again. And by then, my consciousness had expanded just enough for me to begin to grasp some of it. Because believe me, this is deep stuff, and there is enough stuff there to keep me learning for the rest of my life. So this philosophy of spiritual principles provides a framework through which I see the world and my place in it. It helps me to keep the bigger picture of life in mind and to be guided by the higher ideals about life and human existence. Things like our interconnectedness, our shared purpose, and the evolutionary process that we are all engaged in, together and individually. I like to look at my life and try to recognize cause and effect so I can learn from my mistakes and also consider in advance what the likely effects of a certain thought pattern or behavior will be before I let rip. Now, I am deeply interested in karma and reincarnation, and these two are a major thing in the ageless wisdom. And these ideas just turn my crank and bring deeper meaning into everyday life. I like to ponder our shared karma as the human family and my own karmic relationships with the people in my life, as well as the seemingly random crap that happens. I find it helpful to think about the karmic implications of my actions in the here and now and near future in this life, as well as in future incarnations. In The Light of the Soul, Alice Bailey's book based on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Indian sage, it says, and I quote, "Karma is of three kinds. 1. Latent karma. Those seeds and causes which are yet undeveloped and inactive and must work out to fruition in some part of the present or subsequent lives. 2. Active karma. Those seeds or causes which are in process of fruition and for which the present life is intended to provide the needed soil for the flowering forth. 3. New karma. Those seeds or causes which are being produced in this life and which must inevitably govern the circumstances of some future life. The beginner in this science of yoga can begin dealing with his active karma, interpreting each life event and every circumstance as providing conditions wherein he can work off a certain specified series of effects. He can endeavor so to watch his thoughts that new seeds are not sown, so that no future karma can be brought to fruition in some later life." Unquote. Now, I realize that those are some big ideas, but those are the ideas I like. When I am keeping in my mind what my thoughts, words, and deeds will likely unleash in the world, I am much less likely to say or do something I'll regret. And about my thoughts, well, I'll share a slightly embarrassing secret about one way I keep a handle on them. I pretend that other people can read my mind. And that, people, helps me to keep it clean and to slap down that inner bitch that is always popping up with nasty comments. Abiding by your personal philosophy encourages you to live with integrity and to be true to yourself and your values. This way, you will never feel compromised or ashamed of your behavior. But alas, we humans are not infallible, and we make mistakes despite our good intentions. So if you do or say something that you wish you hadn't, apologize or do what you can to make it better. And then try not to do it again. Okay, on to tip number 2. Think in terms of joy, not happiness. Happiness is fleeting and is often based on some material gain that gives us a momentary pleasure or endorphin boost, whereas joy is a quality of the soul, a divine expression that lights up your life and nourishes your being. Often these are creative endeavors or instances when you feel like you are in your element, doing what you are meant to do, or when you give of yourself to serve someone else. And as I said earlier, the thrill of that new pair of shoes or that piece of cake, that's my own personal happiness delusion, folks, the cake, not the shoes, that will soon wear off and you'll be craving more if that's what you rely on to make you happy. In fact, those kinds of things are often masking the issues we need to deal with in life in order to feel better in our own skins. So aim to bring more into your life of what gives you joy on a deep level. When you're experiencing joy, you are making greater contact with your soul, increasing your capacity to express the qualities of your soul and your soul's purpose for this incarnation in your daily life. So happiness is fleeting, but the effect of joy is cumulative, helping you to unfold your higher potential in life. Number 3, rather than happiness, aim for inner peace. My friend Erin calls it contentment, and I tend to agree with her as long as it's not the kind of complacent, don't rock the boat, anything for an easy life kind of contentment, where one is settled and coasting along without any real growth. Because in order to feel inner peace and to be contented in your life on a daily basis, you have to do some work. You've got to liberate yourself from your hang-ups and have a great sense of well-being. When you have a sense of inner peace, you are okay within yourself, regardless of external circumstances. So the shit can hit the fan, and while okay, maybe it's not pleasant, and given the choice, you'd rather that it hadn't hit the fan, you can remain balanced and poised. And in this state, you're much better placed to handle what life has thrown at you. So how do you do that, you ask? Well, that leads us to tip number 4. Learn techniques, practices, and tools to liberate yourself from your hang-ups and your self-sabotaging thought and behavior patterns so you can move forward to ever higher levels of well-being. When I stopped guzzling wine like there was no tomorrow, I thought I had solved all my problems, but boy was I wrong. I had a mountain of crap to deal with. I felt awful about myself, and I was so ashamed. I felt like I had wasted my life. And it wasn't until I started practicing mindfulness and meditating every day that I began to experience some inner peace. I also used techniques like affirmations, visualization, NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming, and self-hypnosis to rid myself of my horrible self-image and the negative self-talk, to reprogram myself with ideas that reinforced my well-being. And when you use those techniques, like mindfulness and meditation, you become aware of what's going on in your head, because much of it is subconscious, but it all pops up for you to observe as soon as you try to meditate. So you learn what you need to work on. And I bet you thought you knew, right? You thought, yeah, I know what my problem is. But the conscious mind, what you're aware of that needs changing, is just the tip of the iceberg. And underneath that baby is a whole slew of garbage just waiting for its opportunity to rise to the surface and be released. And ultimately, that is a good thing. And it's what sorting ourselves out is all about. Achieving ever higher levels of well-being, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Sort one thing out, and another thing rises to the surface to be cleared. One of my favorite methods for both liberating myself of my hang-ups and blockages, as well as consciously reprogramming my mind with beliefs that support my well-being, is to use a guided meditation and to listen to it repeatedly to really instill the ideas into my subconscious mind. I've created a free guided meditation that you can download to program universally positive beliefs into your consciousness that you'll see below here if you're listening on theinspirationcloud.com, or you can access it at theinspirationcloud.com/SYO1. And that is the digit one, not the number one. That's theinspirationcloud.com/SYO1. More on that later. On to tip number 5. Practice, live, and let live. This means that you do not base your own happiness and contentment on needing people to behave in a certain way. Focus on mastering yourself and let others be concerned with their own unfoldment. Not to say you shouldn't help other people, but be aware of when you are offering help where it is not wanted. And this has been a big lesson in my life. I'm a sort of combined people pleaser as well as someone who feels the need to fix things for people. I've always wanted to help people feel better. And so when people tell me their health problems, I am on it, bubbling over with enthusiasm, offering suggestions, telling them what supplements or practices could help. But you know what? Lots of people don't want to know. Lots of people just like to talk about their problems, but have no intention whatsoever of changing anything to sort themselves out. So I've learned to quickly discern when I am in the presence of one of these people, and I try to shift the conversation away from an unprofitable discussion of ill health that only amplifies their condition energetically and also drags me down energetically, and to just move on to other topics. They will get to sorting themselves out when they are ready. And maybe it won't be in this incarnation. And maybe I'm not the person to help them. So I live and let live. I free myself of what I know is my own hang-up around people-pleasing and trying to fix everything. I let go of that frustrating feeling of banging my head against the wall. And I free them too, to inhabit their own timing and to make their own way, unmolested by me. And we have a much nicer connection for it, accepting each other as we are right now. Tip number 6, serve others. Okay, this may sound odd after live and let live, but this is about serving the people who actually want your service, who actually might want your help. Have you ever noticed the buzz you get when you're in the zone and sharing your enthusiasm and wisdom and skills and talents? It is so fulfilling. And on another level, focusing on serving others takes you out of the self-absorbed state where you are wallowing in your problems. And instead, you get to experience the joy of giving, and people will benefit from your service. It is rewarding to both parties. It's a total win-win. And it's such a beautiful exchange of energies as they are giving back to you too, and not just being needy recipients of aid. Tip number 7, accept responsibility for your life. Claim your power to create your life as you want it to be. You are in the driving seat. No one is going to come along and wave a magic wand to sort you out. So if you don't like what your life looks like now, be proactive in making the necessary changes. Where you are now is the result of choices and decisions you made in the past. So you might need to make a mindset shift or release limiting beliefs about what you are capable of doing or what you deserve to have. You might need to program some new beliefs into your consciousness that support the changes you wish to make. But I've got you covered there. That's what the Sort Yourself Out podcast is all about. And in my upcoming episodes, I discuss the most powerful and effective ways to sort yourself out through the 3 phases of transformation. These 3 phases of transformation are about becoming aware of the subconscious patterns that are running our lives, often to our detriment, freeing ourselves from these hindrances, and then consciously choosing and installing at a deep level the beliefs that will uplift our well-being and get us where we want to go. I'll be sharing my favorite top-down approaches to well-being on all levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So what do I mean by top-down? I mean that we are using the highest part of ourselves to guide the lower parts. And the wonderful thing about my top-down approach is that it not only helps us to work on specific issues to improve our lives, but it creates an exponential shift whose effects ripple out to uplift all areas of our lives through the higher awareness it generates. So, back to taking responsibility. The ageless wisdom has a take on responsibility that I find very interesting, if a little alarming when I first came across it. In the Alice Bailey books, the Tibetan master explains that spiritual growth and enlightenment is really the taking on of ever greater levels of responsibility. In each incarnation, we pick up where we left off last time, continuing to cultivate the qualities, skills, and talents that are particular to our own soul's development. And we're not just in it for ourselves. In the bigger picture of interconnected and interdependent life, each soul is contributing to the magnificent whole of which we are all a part. So the more we sort ourselves out and accept and come into our power, the more responsibility we have for shining that light out into the world to uplift others. Wow, I got all metaphysical on you. But hey, I do that a lot. Onwards to tip number 8. Appreciate the simple pleasures in life. Now, this should be a no-brainer, right? But you would be surprised. I cannot tell you the number of clients that come to me wanting help for depression. I call it the modern malaise. It seems like everybody is bummed out. And yet, we have so many amazing things to be grateful for. And people of my generation, and for the record, I am in my 50s, are the most privileged generation that has ever existed. Most of us in the first world have grown up not even knowing war. And I personally have never missed a meal in my life. Lucky me. And even relatively poor people today have a level of comfort and luxury that the poor people from only 100 years ago would be gobsmacked about. So I am proposing that we make a little effort to appreciate the simple pleasures in life, like hot water pouring out of our taps. That is amazing. And how I love hot water and a nice hot bath. The gadget you're listening to this podcast on. Wow. The delicious coffee you had for breakfast after you got up from your warm, comfy bed. The chat with a friend who supports and uplifts you. The gorgeous scent of honeysuckle or rose in your garden. Now that one makes me swoon just thinking about it. The free time you get to park your butt in front of the TV and chillax. That is definitely one of my guilty pleasures. The abundance of goodies in your cupboards, fridge, and freezer. What would the filthy peasant you were a couple of incarnations ago think about that? Because, hey, we weren't all Cleopatra. Basically, all of these freedoms and modern conveniences that the accident of birth affords. And I'm doing air quotes around that phrase, the accident of birth, as according to the ageless wisdom, it's not really an accident at all. We chose the conditions of incarnation, the time, the place, the people we would incarnate with prior to our birth. But I'm going to save that topic for another day because it is rather a biggie. But you get my drift, right? We have so much to be thankful for. So try to recognize these things as you go about your daily life, and you will feel enriched. Number 9, be like the Dalai Lama. Make kindness your religion. I know. People can be annoying. Life can be frustrating, and we're all tired and vexed and overwhelmed. But we only add to the crappiness in the world when we are unkind. So when you get snark from the shop assistant, don't take it personally. Who knows what's going on in that person's life? Maybe they just got some awful news. Maybe they are ill. Maybe they're going through a really difficult time. So just cut them some slack. I had the opportunity to put this to the test in my own life a couple of weeks ago. We were on holiday in the Charente region of France. We'd driven past a building that looked like it was a massive indoor fruit and veg market, and I love those things, but we didn't have the time right then to stop. So I made it a point to go back. Whereupon I realized that instead of a massive market, there were a few crates of manky-looking veg clustered around the open door, and the rest of the building was empty. But I thought, well, I got this elderly lady to emerge from wherever she was out back when the bell rang as I entered, so I thought it would be a good idea to buy something. I opted for a few onions, and as I was paying, I asked if I could have one of the small paper bags that were on the counter to put me onions in. No, she snapped. That bag is worth more than what you bought. And she continued ranting about it as she got me my change and told me to just put the onions in my purse. And she was just generally, shall we say, rude, kind of unpleasant. And I felt a bit shocked, I'll admit. But I quickly decided to just let it go, to shake it off and not take it personally. So I wished her a bonne journée and I got the hell out. And sometimes you come across people and they're just a bit of a dick in general, in which case you're unlikely to put them in their place with a return of snarkiness. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and try to be kind to everyone, especially those people who call me up at mealtimes and try to sell me solar panels. Because I tell you, if I ever lose my shit, I generally feel a right shit, and I try to avoid that. And now we have arrived at tip number 10. Have a playful outlook on life. This one is all about the quality of the journey. These days, we are rushing to get to the destination. Got to get this done. Then I got to do that. And then I got to do that. And then we feel stressed, frustrated, and overwhelmed. And especially if difficulties crop up and slow us down along the way. And I can guarantee you that if you take a deep breath and choose to relax and lighten up, that you're going to sort things out and get to your destination in a way better frame of mind and quite possibly, quite probably, with a better outcome. And even if the only outcome is that you enjoyed the journey better than the stressed out, pulling your hair out, banging your head against the wall, spewing angst out into the universe kind of way, then that's a great result in itself. Imagine how all of those mini journeys add up into a more peaceful, enjoyable, and fulfilling life when you say, hey, it's okay. I'll try this and it'll probably be great, but if it's not the right thing, then I'll work it out and try something else. When you've got this relaxed and lighthearted attitude, even around the serious things in life, and especially around the serious and scary things in life, you are more open to receiving insights and ideas that can help ease your way, light up your path, and give you an aha moment. But if you're all scrunched up and closed and rigid in your thinking, you're like those little pet hedgehogs we see in the videos online, closed up tightly in a ball, spiky, alarmed, literally curling up and protecting itself. But then somebody comes along and waves a piece of cheese around, and for our purposes, this corresponds to the happy-go-lucky mindset, the deep breath. And voila, the little dude opens up into the cutest display possible, looking all smiley and reaching for the cheese. Ah. And the cheese is now morphed into a brilliant idea that eases you on your way to your goal. I know, I got to work on my metaphors, but you get my drift. You've got to open up to get the cheese. Insights and guidance and intuition come when you're in an expansive state of allowing. I'm going to see if I can find that little clip of the hedgehog for you, as that little guy is just so cute, and it might give you a little lift and bring a smile to your face next time you're thinking about curling up and pushing through with gritted teeth. I'll link to it in the show notes. So, alongside this first aspect of enjoying the journey with a lighthearted, playful, and experimental attitude, I want you to do the following as well. Develop the empowering mindset that allows and expects inner wisdom, guidance, and intuition to support you in your life. Take it for granted that you have access to this magical information that you can count on to bring you solutions. I'm going to read you a little bit from a book called The Magical Approach. Seth Speaks About the Art of Creative Living by Jane Roberts and an entity called Seth. Now, Seth spoke through Jane's body while she was in a trance, and Jane's husband Robert wrote it all down and asked various questions to Seth. And if you don't know the Seth books, do check them out. I recommend starting with The Nature of Personal Reality. Honestly, the entities have the best info, and I was overjoyed when I first found the Seth books as I started getting some good answers to my questions about the nature of existence. And they were answers that I could recognize as truth. Seriously, these books are good. I'll put a link in the show notes. So, in the book, The Magical Approach, Seth talks about a lovely idea called value fulfillment, which means this, that consciousness inherently seeks to fulfill its own highest potential, not only for itself, but for the benefit of each other consciousness in our reality. So, I quote, "The magical approach takes it for granted, in the simplest terms, that the life of any individual will fulfill itself will develop and mature, that the environment and the individual are uniquely suited and work together. This sounds very simple. In verbal terms, however, those are the beliefs, if you will, of each cell. They are imprinted in each chromosome, in each atom. They provide a built-in faith that pervades each living creature, each snail, each hair on your head. Those ingrained beliefs are, of course, biologically pertinent, providing the impetus of all growth and development." Unquote. I just love that. It is so beautiful. Seth is inviting us to have a reorientation to how we think about life, to see it as a creative adventure that we ourselves have chosen as it was best suited for our value fulfillment, for us to reach our highest potential in this lifetime. Now you may be thinking, Janine, I did not choose this shit. However, we're going back to the so-called accident of birth that we were talking about before. Seth is talking about how before we incarnated, we decided what we needed to experience in this incarnation to reach our highest potential. He goes on to say, "It is not that each person has his or her source in a magical dimension from which his or her overall life emerges, but that the private source itself is a part of the very energy that upholds the entire planet and its inhabitants and the overall construct that you understand as the universe. Fields or planes of interrelatedness connect all kinds of life, supporting it not through, say, just one system, a biological or a spiritual one, but at every conceivable point of its existence. This means that you do not have to rely upon what you think of as your private resources alone. Basically, value fulfillment is one of the most important characteristics of existence, so that all things act individually and together in ways that best provide for the overall fulfillment of the entire construct." Unquote. Oh, that is so amazing. So, try to go about your life with a playful attitude, with faith that you are where you need to be and that you have what it takes within you and through the magical support of life itself, through your connection to the very energy that animates and supports the whole dang thing, the entire universe, to reach your highest potential. And don't take yourself too seriously. Try to see your life and your challenges, because we all get those, as an exciting creative adventure. Okay, I've taken it large, as I love to do, and brought it down to the very cells and atoms that make up all of life. As above, so below, as the spiritual maxim says. Now, I love this last tip so much that I have created a free guided meditation that I want you to check out to help you instill this idea of life supporting your existence into every fiber of your being, so that you can have a lighter, more playful outlook on life. It's a nice, short, guided meditation. It's only a few minutes long, and it's going to help you relax and get your mind into a nice, receptive state, so that we can program the belief that life conspires to make us successful, that we have access to all sorts of guidance and inspiration and opportunities and miracles that can help us on our way and that help us to fulfill our potential. Nice. You'll see a link to this free audio below if you're listening to this on the inspirationcloud.com, or you can access it at theinspirationcloud.com/SYO1. So there we have it. Those are my top 10 tips on how to be better than happy. But you know what? I'm going to chuck in a bonus tip as I think it's a really good foundation from which to approach all the other ideas we've discussed here. It's short and it's simple. Life is all about learning and evolving. We grow through our difficulties and challenges and learn important lessons that move us forward on our soul's evolution. So accept that there will be challenges to overcome. And life would be pretty boring anyway if it were always smooth sailing. Carl Jung said, "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness." So we can expect light and shade in life. It's an illusion to think that we can be happy 100% of the time. And that's why I like to focus on these ideas that we've discussed today about being better than happy, as when we embrace them, we set ourselves onto a stable foundation of personal integrity, fulfillment, and joy through which happiness will ebb and flow, but we can remain serene in our sense of inner peace. When you take care of the inner, deeper, and yet higher side of things, the external things take care of themselves. And that is the essence of a top-down approach and why it can make an exponential shift in your life. Let me illustrate this with a quick example. Say you decide to take up tip number 9 and make kindness your religion. So you curb your sharp tongue and you think before you speak. Sometimes you even choose to stay silent, gosh darn it, rather than potentially offending someone. And guess what? There will be a multitude of knock-on effects that will reverberate out and make your life way more harmonious and agreeable, such as you will have better relationships with people. Like attracts like, and people will be kind to you in return. People will like you more and be more amenable to helping you out. You will be freeing yourself of the drama of those contentious and sticky situations your sharp tongue used to get you into. You will be releasing the shame and the regret and the guilt of letting rip that you used to have to contend with, and that is a huge thing energetically. You won't have to constantly be apologizing or trying to make amends or dodging across the road to avoid someone you were previously rather frank with. You might advance more in your job because you are more professional and trustworthy. You can be dealing with all 3 of those kinds of karma we talked about earlier. So your efforts to be kind now can improve things not only in this lifetime, but in future incarnations as well. Neato. And there are probably way more things, but here's a nice one to end with. You will like yourself more. Now just imagine the impact that last one has in all other areas of your life. It's a whopper. So you see what I mean. It sounds like a simple thing. Just be kind. But it has quite a widespread impact in freeing up your life, eliminating unnecessary drama and pain, and in making your life better at a profound level. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up now with a quick recap of my top 10 tips. 1, have a personal philosophy that guides your life and gives it meaning and significance. 2, think in terms of joy, not happiness. 3, rather than happiness, aim for inner peace. 4, learn techniques, practices, and tools to liberate yourself from your hang-ups and your self-sabotaging thought and behavior patterns so you can move forward to ever higher levels of well-being. 5, practice live and let live. 6, Serve others and free yourself in the process. Aim for win-win situations. 7. Accept responsibility for your life. You alone have the power to make it great. 8. Appreciate the simple pleasures in life. Try to recognize and seek out all the amazing things that most of us take for granted. 9. Be like the Dalai Lama. Make kindness your religion. Spread the good vibes and they will come right back to you. And lastly, have a playful outlook on life. Don't take yourself too seriously. Try to see your life and your challenges as an exciting, creative adventure. Now, if I had to choose just one of these tips, the one that I felt had the most power to have a positive impact on your life, it would be tip number 4. To learn techniques, practices, and tools to liberate yourself from your hang-ups and your self-sabotaging thought and behavior patterns so you can move forward to ever higher levels of well-being. To me, this one is the daddy. It's the governor. We've got this thing going on in our house at the moment where we're calling Twiggy the dog the governor, or that's governor in my poor Cockney English accent. Sorry about that. So Twiggy is the little governor, and Steve, my husband, is the big governor. And of course, I like to think that I am the real governor. And we're killing ourselves laughing and putting words in Twiggy's mouth, most of them on the rude side, because Twiggy's a bit like that. And we're doing it in Cockney rhyming slang, so we're just having a bit of a laugh with that. So anyhow, this idea is the daddy. It's the governor. Anyhow, there's lots of overlap in these tips, but if you only took to heart tip number 4, you'd be incorporating several of the other tips. You'd be taking responsibility for your life. You'd most likely be bringing more joy and peace into your life. And although you'd be taking up practices and techniques to liberate yourself, you'd also be serving others. Because as I like to say, the more you uplift yourself, the more you cultivate well-being on all levels of your life, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, the more you radiate your well-being out into your surroundings and your relationships, and you become a source of upliftment for others. Nice. And that to me is what it's all about. So before we go, there are a few things I'd like you to consider over the next little while to help you apply these tips in your life. What can you do today to bring more joy into your life? What fills you with enthusiasm? What lights you up? Make some time for it and feed your soul. Next, what are your more superficial happiness endeavors, i.e., the shoes, the cake, the booze, or whatever your poison, masking? What deeper need are you trying to fulfill? Can you think of a way to nourish this need on a deeper level that feeds your soul? What kind of practice are you drawn to free yourself of your hang-ups and create a little more inner peace in your life? Now here, I'm thinking of meditation or mindfulness or EFT, that's emotional freedom technique or tapping, self-hypnosis, etc., those kinds of things. And if you don't know much about these things, don't forget to check out my upcoming episodes where I'll be discussing in depth the techniques you can practice to sort yourself out and be better than happy. Next, remember to master your thoughts and to rein in your inner bitch. Imagine people can read your mind. Oh, isn't that a scary thought? And if the negativity is directed at yourself, ask yourself if you would speak this way or say such things to a friend. You probably wouldn't. And then give yourself a break and say something nice to yourself instead. Oh, you lovely human, you are so smart and talented. Like that. So, there we have it. I'm going to shut my gob now and go eat cake. Please join me next week when I will be sharing the most powerful and effective ways to sort yourself out and improve your well-being via my top-down approach and the 3 phases of transformation. Don't forget to check out my free guided meditation to program the belief that life conspires to make us successful and to help us fulfill our potential, from the bigger picture of life right down to our cells. Honestly, this is a top-down audio par excellence, as these beliefs will ripple out and improve all areas of your life. It's all about going for the big impact with minimal effort. You'll find it at theinspirationcloud.com/SYO1. Well, that is all for now, folks. Have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. I really hope you found it helpful and full of uplifting ideas that you can put into practice in your life. And if you have, chances are your friends and family will too. So please share it with them on social media. You'll be helping them to sort themselves out, because I bet you think they need it, right? But seriously, you'll also be doing me a huge favor in return, and I will be eternally grateful and sending loving vibes your way. I would also love it if you would leave me a review on iTunes, preferably a nice one, please. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast too. If you have any questions or would like me to address a certain topic, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at info@theinspirationcloud.com. Have a good one, folks. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.